Hello everyone, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much for everyone who's watched or everything up till now. It's been an amazing response. Love it. Thanks for all the comments. Most of the comments, some of the comments. Someone has pointed out that I can be a bit mean in the replies, and I apologise for that. It is meant to be affectionate. But actually, I should point out that I'm not going to be doing any more requests. That's not because I'm mean. It's just because I've kind of got a list now of I know what people want to hear. I think we've done all the Pink Floyd stuff. We've done all the real big ticket stuff. So now we're going to move on to other things. The first of which is this, which is something I've been wanting to do for ages. This is Last Plane Out by Toy Matinee. Now, a lot of you who are this has been really heavily requested, but there might be some people, if you're coming sort of who know me for the Pink Floyd stuff and whatever, you might not know about this band. Now, this is one of the coolest projects I was ever involved with. I often refer to it as it's kind of like my Velvet Underground, in that sort of it wasn't that successful when it happened, but it went on to be incredibly influential. I actually get more kudos for this album from American musicians than I do for practically anything else I've ever done. It was an amazing project, and it was a band, very much a band, although if you look at the album cover, I'm not actually credited as a band member because for some reason, I can't remember if it was either a legal thing or whatever, I was actually advised to not sign the record deal, or I was not, I don't know, something went on. So anyway, so I wasn't signed. So I'm not down as a band member. But I could not have been more of a band member if I wanted. Frankly, what happened was, the story was, it was the end of 1988 or beginning of 1989. Pat Leonard, my dear friend and mentor, he just delivered the Like a Prayer album. So he was very much the golden boy at Warner Brothers, and he wanted to do this dream band project. And they went, mate, whatever you want. So Pat, I was the first person Pat asked. In fact, he'd asked me to go to LA, and the idea was we'd audition people and put this band together. And it was just brilliant. I mean, Pat had this amazing studio, Johnny Yuma, in Burbank on Hollywood Way. It was just a few doors down from the Jelly Bean factory. I remember. It's one of those things where I can remember the drive there every day from my house. I mean, everything about this project was so perfect and such fun. I was lodging with my friend and manager at the time, I think, Tarquin Gotch, up on Benedict Canyon. Literally 200 yards from Cielo Drive, you know, where Leo DiCaprio lives in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I was there. I was right there, which is probably why I love that film so much. And Tarquin at the time was transitioning between being a music supervisor to a producer for John Hughes, the director. So I'd come home from the studio and he'd be looking through the day's rushes of Home Alone or Uncle Buck. I mean, it couldn't be more Hollywood. It was fantastic. Anyway, what else to say? I mean, Pat had come across this guy, Kevin Gilbert. I think it was from some Yamaha competitions, talent contest or something. But he came across Kevin, who was, just an extraordinary talent. And then we found Brian McLeod, who was playing for Wire Train at the time. I believe he said to me later he was actually painting houses at the time. In fact, we called them up and said, I hear you paint houses. Yes, I do. I also do my own woodwork. Sorry, was it woodwork or carpentry? Anyway, I digress. And Bill Bottrell, of course, was producing it. That prompted some very funny times in the studio when Pat would be trying to produce me, go, you're the keyboard player, Pat. And then Tim Pierce, who played just some of the most accomplished, beautiful guitar I've ever heard. I've played with some pretty good guitar players, and everyone's work is just extraordinary on this record. And we had 3 months of doing it, and in fact I had to leave before the end, which is why I'm not on one of the songs. I had to leave before the end because I had to rush off to go back on tour with Pink Floyd. God, those are the days, eh? And in fact, I remember when we played the legendary Venice gig, the night before I was in my hotel room out at the Lido in Venice. Vast hotel room, remember, biggest hotel room ever. So what? Anyway, and I remember being on the phone to the studio doing a voiceover for the album. I'd say something like Le Thrapage avec Bottrell. It was one of those weird little in-jokes that the band had. And it didn't actually make it onto the album, which was annoying because that would have been an expensive phone call back then. But anyway, so I couldn't remember what bass I played this on. There's always had a suspicion it was going to be this because it's an octave pedal jobby. I thought it might have been Betsy. I asked Bill. He said, "Why don't you ask Tim?" So then, of course, I asked Pat, and Pat said it was the bass you did Like a Prayer on. So of course, it's this. It is amazing how much stuff this has been on. I can't believe I tried to get rid of it. Because this album, there's going to be a few more from this album. Because all the bass sounds on it are amazing. I mean, all the everything sound. I mean, Bill Betrayer's a god. I asked him how he got the bass sound on this particular track. And he said he couldn't remember exactly, but there was a little thing he used to have, which is where he'd have an incredibly short stereo delay with slightly different modulation on both sides. And I think this is something like that. It's just like the sexiest stereo chorus you've ever heard. And other than that, I can't really think of much. Except it's a lot more simple than I remember. Yeah. So let's give it a go. Last Plane Out by Toy Matinee.
Greetings from Sodom, how we wish you were here. The weather's getting warmer now that the trees are all cleared. No time for a conscience, and we recognize no crime. Yeah, we got dogs and Valvoline, it's a pretty damn good time. Man of reason, not of rhyme. Keep the spoils and share the crime. Hey, good man, bad man, lost without hope for passage on the last plane out. And a few who still believed. Yes, I think there were 5 good men here yesterday, but they were asked to leave. So we've kept the good old vices and labored to invent a few. With cake and vulgar surplus, we can have it and eat it too. Man of reason, not of rhyme. Keep the spoils and share your crimes. Good man, bad man, every man without hope for passage on the last plane out. Man of reason, hide your face. You're walking backwards, blazes is. Good man, bad man, every man without hope for passage on the last plane out.
This is the bit where the bass and bass drum never repeat during the 8-bar sequence. Yes.
So here's a concept you can't dance to, an idea you cannot hum. There may not be an empty seat when all is said and done. Well, I'm not the guy who sings the hymns, no bleeding hearts to mend. But I like the part where he Chris hijacks the little red hand. Someone said the big man may be joining us soon, but I never was the type to hang with the harbingers of doom. And this party is addictive, self-destructive, no doubt. So I hope that someone saves a seat for me on the last plane out. Man of reason, not of rhyme. Keep the spoils and share the crime. Good man, bad, every man lost without hope for passage on the last plane.
Okay, so there it is. Last Plane Out. A couple of things to say about this song. I co-wrote it, actually. In fact, it's my title. I always had a big obsession with that whole Last Chopper Out of Saigon thing. And it was it addresses climate change in the first verse, which is quite ahead of its time, I think you'll find. It was a lot of fun writing it. I think at one point there was actually a verse that was a veiled attack on Phil Collins. I have no idea why. I can't think what Phil Collins had done to bug us, but he clearly had, but not so much that we left it in. So that was probably a good thing. The other thing is probably the only song I've ever played where I don't do any fills on the end choruses. And the only reason I can think of for that is that I don't actually know what the chords are. I think I just came up with that sort of descending line which went over the chords, and there's clearly it changes key at least once. But I think I just never got around to asking what the chords are, so I didn't dare do any fills. So maybe that's a thing for producers in future. If you don't want me to mess up your outro, just don't let me know what the chords are. It's pretty straightforward. Only does that once. And there's just, and that's basically it. And there's a couple of little filthy, at the end of the first verse, it's. Yeah. No. And the other bit is the at the end of this. And at the end of that verse it goes. And at the end of the third verse it's. And then there's the middle eight bit. What Americans call the bridge, but we call the middle eight, so it's the middle eight, where I had this idea that the bass and the bass drum should never repeat during the 8-bar sequence. And the only reason I remember that is because I remember getting that idea from David Gilmour, who told me when he wrote Terminal Frost, the only real brief he had was that the melody, the amount of notes in the melody should never repeat. And I just wanted to use that idea for something. So and there it is. Next up is going to be Disco Fun with the fantastic Sophie Ellis Bextor's Murder on the Dance Floor. Yay! And so stay safe, everyone. Look out for one another, and try and keep your head together. We can do this. We can. And thanks again to everyone who's working to keep us all safe and fed and lit and whatever. All right, lots of love. Cheers.